This is Juan Carlos Hernandez. Here he is speaking openly to police about his horrific crimes. At one point, he said, "I prefer that my dogs eat the flesh of those women than let them continue breathing my oxygen." Alongside his wife, Patricia Martinez, they carried out a killing spree that would make them the most notorious killer couple in Mexican history. To their neighbors, they seemed ordinary, but in reality, they were ruthless and merciless as they carried out their truly heinous crimes. This image, taken from police surveillance, shows the moment just before they were caught red-handed. Inside the pram they pushed was not a youth, but human remains that they were preparing to dispose of. One of the most disturbing things about this case was Hernandez's lack of remorse. He admitted that if he were ever freed, he would kill again, and his only regret was not reaching 100 victims. This case is brutal. I'm surprised it's not more well known. In this video, I will be focusing more on the final 3 murders, the ones that led to their arrest, but I will speak of some of the other murders, but they are not as well documented, so there won't be as much detail in those parts. But there were certainly many more murders than we know about, and what happens during the court proceedings is some of the most shocking I've heard. Brace yourself, this is a rough one. But before we dive in, if you find this video fascinating, then please drop it a like and leave me a comment below. And if you are new here, then please hit the subscribe button and consider following me on Instagram. It all really helps. Thank you. Before we begin, I want to mention that images for the early part of this case are quite limited. I've included some reference images to give you an idea, but as the video progresses, you'll start to see more authentic visuals. Thank you for your patience. Juan Carlos Hernandez was born on March 1st, 1985 in Michoacan, Mexico. The details of his childhood come from his own account, so the truth and embellishment may be blurred. But what he claimed to witness were things no youth should ever see. His home, he said, was deeply dysfunctional. His father, spending most of his time at work, he described as weak and spineless. In contrast, his mother was very dominating, a presence that shaped his earliest years in ways that would leave lasting scars. She apparently wanted Hernandez to be a girl and would make him wear dresses when he was young. When his father was at work, she would have other men round the house and sleep with them. The most disturbing part was that she shared a bedroom with Hernandez. 2 mattresses were on the floor, only separated by a curtain. A young Martinez would hear and often see his mother sleeping with other men, whilst his father was not there. Hernandez said that when his father was home, he would often see his mother try to stab him. What unsettled the young Hernandez the most wasn't her violence, but his father's weakness in allowing it to happen. At age 10, he claims he was intimately assaulted multiple times by a woman who used to look after him, whilst his mother went out to bars and his father was at work. These experiences, combined with the way his mother treated his father, fueled a deep hatred for women. Hernandez swore that when he grew older, no woman would ever disrespect him again. Around the same time, another event left its mark. At age 10, after falling down 2 flights of stairs, he suffered a serious head injury. Strangely, he claimed that afterwards his grades at school improved, as if the trauma sharpened his mind. Whether it also changed him in darker ways was less obvious at the time. By 16, Hernandez had left school. He drifted between odd jobs, but proved immature, irresponsible, and unwilling to work hard. Soon after, he joined the military, entering the 2nd Battalion of the Presidential Guard. where he earned the nickname Green Terror. Yet, his service was brief. He only lasted 9 months before he left. For a time, Hernandez managed to hold on to a stable relationship, but when his girlfriend left him for another man, the loss shattered him. He was 22 years old, deeply in love and devastated. From that moment, he claimed that if he couldn't be happy, no one else deserved to be. His first victim was a 19-year-old woman named Monica, who was also his girlfriend. When he discovered that she was cheating, rage consumed him. Using an extension cord, he strangled her in her own bed and left her body there. Later, the man she had been seeing took the blame. With suspicion diverted, Hernandez walked free, his first murder undetected. Had he been caught then, so many more lives could have been saved. In 2008, Hernandez walked into a bar in Ecatepec and met Patricia Martinez. She worked there as a barmaid. Hernandez caught her attention by flaunting cash, but what drew him to her was more personal. She reminded him of Monica, the girlfriend who had left him. When Martinez asked what he did for a living, his answer was chilling: murder. She laughed, thinking it was a dark joke, but Hernandez leaned in, insisting he was a hitman. This was most likely fantasy, and nothing has ever been proven, but disturbingly, it didn't drive her away. Their relationship deepened quickly. After the first intimate night together, Hernandez asked her how much she wanted for her services. When Martinez said nothing, it enraged him. He later admitted that if she had asked for money, he would have killed her there and then. Instead, her answer spared her life. They actually did get on, and Hernandez felt a genuine connection. Soon, they moved into a cramped apartment in Ecatepec, a struggling neighborhood on the edge of Mexico City. Outwardly, they became a normal couple, raising 4 youths over the next few years. But behind the walls of that home, a partnership was formed, one that would soon become the most infamous killing duo in modern Mexican history. Martinez was a troubled person herself. From the age of 6, she was intimately abused by her cousin, and her whole upbringing was basically being abused by older men. Martinez had a low IQ bordering on disability, and she was easily manipulated. As she grew older, she became submissive, relying on the attention of men for her sense of worth. Some reports suggest she even worked as a street worker, though this has never been confirmed. To support their family, Martinez sold anything she could: clothes, mobile phones, jewelry, and even cheese. Hernandez collected cans and bottles, selling them to recycling centers. On the outside, they seemed like any other couple in the struggling Ecatepec, simply blending into the community. The couple did have clashes with their landlord. Not long before their arrest, they were told to vacate the property. Neighbors complained that they were using too much water, a scarce commodity in the area. Others were irritated by the foul stench that spread through the courtyard whenever they bathed their dogs. But the smell wasn't coming from the animals. No one realized the true source of that stench, and it certainly wasn't the dogs. In 2010, the first of the couple's reported murders took place. They had placed a sign in their window advertising for a woman to help with housework. But Patricia Martinez later admitted that the ad had another purpose. She believed Hernandez wanted another woman for intimacy, and since she was pregnant, she agreed to the arrangement in the hopes of pleasing him. Soon, 30-year-old Fabiola Luquin Reyes knocked on their door, inquiring about the job. Hernandez welcomed her in, claiming he would show her the work. The house itself was sparse, barely furnished, hardly the kind of place in need of a cleaner. Still, with Martinez visibly pregnant, This could have reassured Fabiola enough to stay. As Hernandez led Fabiola through the house, he whispered for Martinez to wait outside with their son. She obeyed. Inside, Hernandez turned to Fabiola and directed her to the bathroom, saying that was where the laundry was kept. Once there, he struck. Grabbing her from behind, he dragged her to the floor as she fought and screamed. Before she could cry out too loudly, he stabbed her in the neck and slit her throat wide open. Then he continued to mutilate her body. When Hernandez called Martinez back in, she found Fabiola lying in a pool of blood, her body dismembered, her head severed. At first, Martinez threatened to report him, but Hernandez replied, "Don't be stupid. If you go to the police, we'll both end up in prison." She believed him. In that moment, Martinez crossed a line from bystander to accomplice. Then the horror only deepened. Before her eyes, Hernandez carved out flesh from Fabiola's leg and handed it to Martinez, ordering her to prepare it. She cut it into 4 steaks, fried them in oil, and served them with tortillas. That night, Hernandez, Martinez, and their dogs ate human flesh. Their son was spared from the meal, with Hernandez fearing it might have a bad effect on him. But the fact that Martinez complied so quickly revealed just how easily she could be manipulated. The rest of Fabiola's body was stuffed into bags and dumped in alleyway bins. No one questioned Hernandez carrying rubbish bags, as he worked as a scavenger and it just looked routine. They sold her clothes and phone and pocketed the 50 pesos she was carrying. It was a reckless crime, one that could have easily exposed them, yet no one suspected a thing. And so, Hernandez and Martinez were emboldened to kill again. In 2012, the couple struck again. By this point, there had already been other murders, but I will tell you about them later. Living directly above Hernandez and Martinez was a family they knew well. Hernandez sometimes worked with their father, and they were familiar with his 14-year-old daughter, Luz de Carmen Miranda. Martinez lured the youth in, telling her she had jewelry to sell and inviting her to come downstairs to look. When Carmen entered the apartment, Hernandez turned on the charm, telling her she was very pretty. Then, without warning, he grabbed her, tied her up and took her to the bathroom. The youth was terrified, but Hernandez told her that if she obeyed him, she would survive. He then called Martinez into the room and ordered her to kiss the youth. But this time, Martinez refused, perhaps because of the victim's young age, but either way, she walked out, leaving Hernandez alone with her. Hernandez would then go on to force himself on Carmen. Afterwards, he slit her throat, decapitated her, and then chopped her body into smaller pieces. All of this happened in the bathroom. He then put the remains into a box. When Martinez finally returned, she wasn't horrified by the sight of the murdered youth, but rather annoyed by the blood. "You've made such a mess," she complained. Hernandez replied, "It's a small bathroom. What do you expect?" Together, they ate parts of Carmen's flesh before disposing of the rest in a nearby canal. Her remains would not be discovered for another 5 years. What made the crime even more disturbing was what came after. Hernandez joined Carmen's father in searching the streets for his missing daughter, all the while knowing exactly what he had done. For 2 years, he and Martinez continued living in the same building as the grieving family, pretending to be sympathetic neighbors, asking about the investigation, offering comfort and offering emotional support. Not long after Carmen's murder, another teenager fell victim. Like many of the women in this case, her name was never revealed. What is known is that she was struggling with addiction, a vulnerability Hernandez and Martinez were quick to exploit. Martinez lured her in with the promise of food and money. Most likely desperate, the youth agreed and stepped into their home. Once inside, the pattern repeated. She was bound and dragged into the bathroom, intimately assaulted, and then dismembered. All the while, Martinez sat in the front room, watching over their youths, as though nothing horrific was happening just a few steps away. As time passed, the couple grew bolder. Martinez began luring victims through online marketplaces, advertising clothes, jewelry, and photos, items that were stolen from the women they had already murdered. But not every murder happened in their home. Hernandez later admitted to killing at least 5 street workers, sometimes in alleyways and other times in hotel rooms. He claimed he needed to taste human blood at least once every 3 months. The couple had grown accustomed to eating human flesh. Victims' remains were stored in a fridge, which their offspring were forbidden to open. The victims' bones were sold to people called santeros for ritualistic use. Their flesh was cooked into meals such as chilies, tacos, and ordinary dishes hiding gruesome ingredients. And their victims' belongings were sold to cover their rent. It became a business, and Hernandez referred to it as such. Martinez, once hesitant, was now fully complicit. She not only lured women, but also took part in the intimate abuse. Killing had become routine, second nature. For years, the murders continued as Hernandez and Martinez shifted from one apartment to another, leaving no trail strong enough to expose them. But by 2018, their spree began to unravel. In Ecatepec, the number of missing women was soaring. Reports claimed disappearances had risen by 227%. The community knew something was terribly wrong, but no one could explain it. Rumors spread of organ trafficking and black market sales. Few imagined that the killers were hiding in plain sight, living amongst them as ordinary neighbors. Arlette Samantha Holguin Hernandez was a 22-year-old young mother of 2. On April 25, 2018, she dropped off her eldest youth at nursery and returned home with her 3-year-old daughter. Living just above her, in the same apartment block, were Hernandez and Martinez, and once again, they struck right on their doorstep. I think it's crazy that they managed to get away with this once, but here they were doing it again. Insane. Martinez knocked on Arlette's door, offering to sell her a pair of jeans. With her toddler playing safe, Arlette stepped upstairs, expecting to be gone for just a few minutes. Inside, Martinez told her to wait on the sofa whilst she fetched the jeans. As Arlette sat, Hernandez crept up from behind and plunged a knife into her neck. Before she could react, he stabbed her again and again until she collapsed. She died almost instantly. Her body was then dragged to the bathroom, where Martinez later admitted Hernandez committed necrophilia before dismembering her remains. When Arlette failed to collect her daughter from nursery, the teachers grew alarmed and contacted Arlette's mother. The grandmother picked up the youth, but when she returned to Arlette's apartment, she found the toddler crying alone at home. "Where is Mommy?" the grandmother asked. The toddler replied, "Mommy upstairs." At the time, the grandmother couldn't make sense of it. Only months later, would the chilling truth become clear. The toddler knew her mother had gone into the killer's apartment above. Desperate, the grandmother tried calling her daughter's phone, but it was dead. Panicked, she contacted the authorities and reported her daughter missing. While Arlette's family searched for her, Hernandez and Martinez cooked and ate her flesh, feeding scraps to their dogs. The rest of her remains was stuffed into the fridge, waiting for the right time to dispose of them. The very next morning, there was a knock at their door. An investigator had come to ask about Arlett's disappearance. Hernandez answered calmly, spinning a story about seeing a black van in the neighborhood, but insisting he hadn't seen Arlette in days. Later, during interrogation, he admitted he was worried the investigator might ask to come inside. If that happened, Hernandez said he would have to have killed them on the spot, because Arlette's remains were still inside the apartment. Once again, the couple escaped suspicion. That night, they sold her bones and dumped what was left of her body in a bin in an alley. When asked why he killed her, Hernandez said, and quote, "Because she was pretty." He described passing her on the stairs, locking eyes, and knowing in that instant that she would be his next victim. He also said he believed she knew it too. He also claimed Arlette had made derogatory remarks about his wife, and for that he said she deserved to die. On July 26, 2018, another woman vanished. She was 29-year-old Evelyn Roja Matas. Martinez had contacted her through an online platform, offering clothes for her daughter's upcoming birthday. It seemed like a harmless sense of kindness. Those clothes would make a perfect gift, but it was a trap. When Evelyn stepped into their apartment, Hernandez instantly lunged at her. He put her in a headlock and began beating her. Then, in the living room, with Martinez watching, he forced himself on her. Evelyn screamed and begged for her life, but to silence her, Hernandez pulled out a knife and stabbed her again and again. She died quickly. Her body was dragged to the bathroom, where Hernandez hacked off her limbs. The cycle repeated. Parts of her were eaten, scraps fed to the dogs, and the bones sold off. By now, Hernandez's bloodlust was only growing stronger and harder to control. Their final known victim was 28-year-old Nancy Naomi Wharton Solorio, the mother of a 2-month-old newborn. Martinez had known Nancy's mother for years and was familiar with Nancy herself. Using that trust, Martinez lured her in, sending a message offering clothes for the newborn and inviting her to the apartment. When Nancy arrived, Hernandez was waiting. He demanded she hand over the youth, promising everything will be fine if she obeyed. Frightened, Nancy gave the infant to Martinez, who carried the youth into another room, leaving Nancy alone with Hernandez. He immediately attacked, beating her before forcing himself on her. Then he dragged her to the bathroom, slit her throat and dismembered her body. The remains were burned behind a shed in the backyard. But what the couple didn't know was that Nancy had planned to eat with her mother after visiting them and had told her family where she was going. When her phone went silent and her WhatsApp account was deleted, her mother was very alarmed. She reported her missing, telling police that the last place Nancy said she was going was Martinez's apartment. Investigators began connecting the dots. Arlette had lived inside the same building as the killer couple, and when they searched Evelyn's social media, it shone that she had been in contact with Martinez. One by one, the missing women traced back to the same couple. Maybe the most horrific part happened a few days later. Hernandez and Martinez sold Nancy's 2-month-old newborn to another couple for 15,000 pesos. This was a truly horrific crime, but the killer's time was running out. Police first placed Hernandez and Martinez under surveillance, hoping they might lead investigators to evidence. Their social media profiles only deepened suspicion. Hernandez's account followed pages about serial killers, demons, and, most chilling of all, pages that shone reports of missing and murdered women in the area. Was this a twisted way of reliving his own crimes? On October 4th, 2018, surveillance finally paid off. The couple was seen leaving their apartment, pushing 2 prams. As officers approached, the sight was unusual. The pram was covered in blankets, and the couple were already prime suspects in 3 disappearances. As they got closer, a foul stench drifted from the prams. Whatever lay inside was clearly not a youth. The officers were going to ask about the 3 missing women, but the smell made them ask what were they pushing in the pram. And Martinez answered without hesitation. Human body parts, she said. The killers were arrested on the spot. Soon after, their apartment was inspected. What they found was horrifying. They found the small fridge that had human body parts and flesh inside. There was numerous buckets that had human limbs in them and had been filled with cement. In one corner stood an altar to Santa Muerte, the personification of death, which was surrounded by jars containing hearts preserved in formaldehyde. Hernandez later confessed that he used the fat and skin of his victims to fertilize his plants. Perhaps the most disturbing of all was the setting. This was not an isolated hideout or a remote house. It was a family home. Hernandez and Martinez's 4 youths had been growing up in this environment, surrounded by horrors hopefully they may not have understood. During interrogation, Hernandez claimed there was up to 20 victims, whilst Martinez said there was 10. I'd believe Hernandez, as he was killing women outside of the home as well. Hernandez described his relationship with Martinez as one of a lion and a lioness. She lured the prey and he devoured it. He showed no remorse. His only regret, he said, was killing women too close to where he lived. If released, he promised he would kill again without hesitation. At one point, he stated coldly, "I would rather my dog eat the flesh of those women than let them continue breathing my oxygen." When asked why he killed, Hernandez claimed he had visions since childhood and suffered from unbearable headaches. Headaches that only subsided after he murdered. What investigators found interesting was that Hernandez was very passive when not in control, but as soon as he was, he became aggressive. They seen this side of him during interrogation, the side which Hernandez himself refers to as the demon, and the side of him that his victims would have seen. When asked if he had ever had any psychological help, he was quite aggressive in his response. He said, "I'm fine. What I'm doing is right, because I'm cleaning the world of filth. I am completely healthy and well." Martinez, by contrast, believed she would walk free. She saw herself as an accomplice, rather than an equal partner in the murders. Psychological evaluations deemed her as a woman of low intelligence and low self-esteem, someone desperate to please her husband. But that was no excuse. Experts concluded that she would likely have fallen into criminal behavior, with or without Hernandez. Interrogations revealed the truth. Martinez was no passive bystander. She had committed 2 murders herself, participated in the intimate abuse, and personally lured many of the victims into their trap. She was complicit at every level. Like her husband, she knew exactly what she was doing. And like her husband, she knew it was wrong. Footage of Hernandez's interrogation was leaked to the media, and his demeanor sparked national outrage. He spoke with pride, smirked as he confessed, and shown no hint of remorse. In response, vigils were held in Ecatepec. People gathered at the couple's former residence, leaving candles, flowers, and signs to honor the victims. What had once been just another apartment in a working-class neighborhood had become a place of mourning. In court, neither Hernandez nor Martinez showed the slightest trace of guilt. They laughed as details of their crimes were read out loud, leaving the victims' families in anguish. At one point, Hernandez was asked if he wanted to deny anything. Instead, he calmly confirmed that everything was true. His only regret, he said, was that he did not reach his goal of killing 100 women. Then he turned to the parents of Arlette and declared, "I am human, and before I stabbed her to death, I'd let her speak her last words. I promised I would share them if I were ever caught. She said, tell my mother I'd love her very much." The courtroom fell silent as he continued. Hernandez told Arlette's mother that he killed her daughter because she was beautiful. But her mother, despite the horror, stood strong. She replied, "My daughter left like a queen. Her daughters are surrounded by love, unlike your youths, who God only knows what will become of them." With no remorse, Hernandez tried to boast further, describing how he sold Arlette's bones and ate her flesh. Guards intervened, cutting him off before he could continue. It was one of the most harrowing courtroom exchanges I've ever heard. A moment that tested the strength of a grieving family, forced to face a man who reveled in their suffering. Hernandez and Martinez were found guilty of 9 counts of murder and 1 count of human trafficking and illegal inhumation of human remains. After multiple trials, they both ended up with a 327-year sentence. As for the 2-month-old newborn that the couple had sold, investigators eventually tracked down the youth. The people who had taken the infant were sentenced to prison for illegal adoption. It was one of the few small mercies in this case that the youth was found alive. Had they not been, it would have been one of the most tragic outcomes of all. Today, Hernandez remains in solitary confinement. He is allowed out of his cell for just 1 hour each day. Prison guards have stated that if he were ever placed in general population, he would not survive an hour. Hernandez and Martinez still communicate through letters. Reportedly, Hernandez was complaining because he had an urge for blood, and Martinez told him to cut his finger and drink from there. Thankfully, that's as much damage as they can do now. This was truly a series of horrific crimes. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay sane.